First, I have to say, Marty, it's so good to see your face. Judy, it's so good to see your face. And Margaret, it's so good to see your face. The two other people that I keep hearing so much about. And so I'm so glad to see you guys here. Yes, I met Marty many years ago. I feel like when I was just a kid.
Yes.
And then fast forward a little bit, and she so kindly let me stay in her place when I would come to New York for modeling things a few times, and we connected then, and we've just really stayed in touch ever since. And so it was through your kindness that we became friends, not just kid and somebody that I grew up with in my life. So I work, I work as a model in New York City. I've been here for 25 years. And I first heard about the pandemic because a lot of my work is fit modeling. And so a lot of our factories are overseas, right in Hong Kong or mainland China. And so work started slowing down, things were not coming in, whole factories were shutting down, but things were still not on the news here. So I just had to really look for this information, and every night I would read about it. And I remember it was from the very beginning when it would be we heard about some deaths, and then the next day it would jump 100, and the next day it would jump 200. And these were just very small numbers compared to where we ended up. So I feel like I got an inside look because of work. And I just want to say that my story, I hope, brings some joy, but I understand that it's not everybody's story for their pandemic story. So I was in New York City when everything shut down. And I was right here in my 1-bedroom apartment with my husband and my son, who was, I think, 5 years old at the time. And a few weeks in, we started doing what I believe Italy was doing in New York City. At 7 o'clock, they said, everybody open your windows. And at 7 o'clock, we'll all bang whatever we can and clap for the essential workers. And my son and I started to think that was the best part of the day. We were ready to go at 7 o'clock every night. And we would get new things. And then we started blowing bubbles out the window. And, a little ways in, we have our view is of the building across the street. And so we would see everybody come out of their windows. And then over a few weeks and over the next month or so, the windows started to empty out. And I remember counting 19 empty windows, empty apartments. So 3 or 4 windows together. The air conditioners were gone, the curtains were gone. Where we used to see people getting ready for work or coming home after the long day, the building started to empty out. But there was an older couple who was on one of the lower floors, and they would be there at 7 o'clock every single night, so excited. They would almost start it off, we would hear, and my son or my husband would say, our friends across the street are banging on their pots. And so we would run to the thing, and we would see out their little window that was just the top of the air conditioner. There was a woman who would bang a pot out the window. And then I saw a man in a separate window, which turned out to be the kitchen. And so every night we really look forward to this couple, and then we would blow bubbles, and they would scream for more bubbles, more bubbles. And then they would put a little speaker outside, and they would play New York, New York, or something else that was so fun. They even found a song that was called Bubbles, some old song that was called Bubbles. And so we would kind of dance in our window, and they would dance in their window, and we'd stay there hanging out long after everybody else shut their windows, and it would just be the two of us. And so over time, we realized months later, we were still doing this. And I never met them. They just were our friends across the street the whole time. And so I guess that was spring and summer. And then fast forward to maybe around the end of that summer, I had sent in a picture that I took out the window that was just our view, where we had blown bubbles at the end of one of these 7 o'clock times. And I sent it into a Facebook group called View from My Window. And they were just starting to collect all these photos. And they said, everybody take a picture from your window, whether it's a brick wall or it's a beautiful beach. And I was like, okay, I'll send it in. And I guess so many people sent their photos in. It was like months later that mine even popped up on the site. And eventually, the woman who started the Facebook group, she created like a hardcover book. And so she made this book, and she asked certain people if they would allow their photos to be in there. And she asked if I would have my photo on the cover of it. And so it ended up being, I will show you on the cover of this book, View from My Window. And that's my view. Little cherry blossoms from the spring and our bubbles. And then on the back of it here, this little blurb here, it just says Jessica Lavoie, New York City, April 18th, 2020, 7:00 p.m. In the heart of it, in quarantine with my husband and 5-year-old son, the bubbles we shoot out the window at 7 p.m. during clapping time for essential workers has become our favorite thing to do. The neighbors yell for more bubbles and give us thumbs up. It feels good to know it's making them happy too. My son understands why we're clapping every night, and the bubbles seem to make this sad time a little magical for just a few minutes every night. And thank you so much to all the essential workers. We appreciate you very much. So this book is filled with people's views from all over the world. And some really are like a brick wall out the back. I have a neighbor with one. Some are from France and some are from Switzerland, and they're just everybody's view. It was like the most amazing connection, all put into a book. And so when I finally got the book, I ordered some extras, and I was like, this was so special and so meaningful to have this relationship with two people I never knew, and from across the street. So I went across the street to see if I could find them to leave a book for them. And the doorman said, oh no, everybody left this building over COVID. This was maybe a year later by the time the book came out. It was right before Christmas of 2021. And I immediately started crying. I just felt like I didn't even get a chance to like tell them how special that was. Such a scary time to like be stuck in your 1-bedroom apartment and working from home and homeschooling from home. And then we would just look forward to 7:00 every night. And they were like such a great, had such great energy to like ask for the more bubbles and play the music and everything. So I left, and I came back the next day, and I had another idea, and I was like, can you give me the management information so I can find them and send them this book? It's really important to me, and that they get it. And he was like, yeah, I don't know who it was though. And I was pointing to the window outside for him, and he just didn't know. And so I went back a third time, and I had my son with me each time because it'd be like after I picked him up from the school bus. And the third time, he was telling me he still didn't know who they were. Somebody overheard us who happened to be in the lobby, and they said, oh, that's Flo and Jim. They're in 2D. They've been there for 40 years. Like they've been in the same studio apartment for 40 years. And they were still there. So I ran back home. I wrote out this whole thing, like telling them how special it was, completely thinking they're going to think I'm a crazy person. But I wrote it out, and I wrote everything that I felt, and I went back over and I dropped off a book, and I just put like a bow on it and said, from your friends across the street, and left the card. And then we just waited. And like it was like the next day, I was like, these could be crazy people. I don't know them. Like, so like, so the next day, my doorman was like, someone dropped off a card for you. And then we got it. And come to find out, these are two authors. So she wrote out a thing just as long as mine and just as flowery as mine, telling me how wonderful our connection was for her and how important it was. And she remembers like the day that we put this rainbow in our window. It's still there. This rainbow in our window. And she said, I remember the day that you put it up there, and we looked forward to seeing it every day, and how it's faded over the last few years, or the last year at the time. And I realized, I was like, it's still bright as the first day in here on my side, but it was like almost white on the outside. So yeah, so for Christmas so then we started like dropping off little things across the street, like it was Christmas. And so I made her a little Christmas ornament that had a rainbow, and it said, now it's still, the colors will stay bright, all year long from your friends across the street. And she dropped off a little like a jewelry catcher that she had picked up in her travels. And we just started writing. They found out that my son loves tap dancing, and come to find out, the husband Jim wrote an entire book on tap dancing in the 70s. So he wrote in it and signed it. I gave it to us, and just so many special connections between us. And so that Christmas, we were still all kind of keeping to ourselves, not hanging out indoors with anybody. And so that Christmas at like 7 o'clock, we were just winding down on Christmas night, and we were winding down, and just, we had a long day, and my son had his shower, and he's in his PJs, and all of a sudden we heard it's like 2021 already, Christmas. And so my husband was like, I think our friends across the street are banging their pot again. And I was like, and so like and like opened the thing, and like they had put the speaker out, and we were singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" screaming it across the street again. And it became such a special relationship. We did finally meet in person. And at one point they like to go to Greece for several months out of the year. And so like I was their official plant waterer and mail collector. And I just, I love this relationship that we have. And then with this book, eventually it became an exhibit in Brussels, and at a place called the Atomium, and which I knew nothing about, but it's this really amazing, like kind of place where they made it back in the day, I think in the 50s, for like the World's Fair or something like this. And so now there are art pieces and exhibits in there, along with like other things that have to do with Brussels. But it became this exhibit, like a live exhibit, where the woman had us go back and like record stuff out our window, so you could see the difference between, my picture has no cars in it. Well, one car, one guy was out there driving around after they said, don't go out and don't drive around.
There's always.
And so and then my video was like put to like fast motion, and so you could see just like cars, school buses, taxis, and everything. And so I went to Brussels for the opening of the art exhibit, and she included more recent things about my relationship with Flo and Jim, and how like we met and we started sending things across the street, and it was just so special. And it's like during such a scary, weird, like had no idea what was going to happen and what was happening and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, what we should listen to. They were like such a bright light. And so like I feel so lucky to have this piece that reminds me of everything. And yes, it's from the pandemic, but it's very much brought us a lot of joy. And my son even said tonight, when I told him I was coming on here, he's 8 years old now, and he was like, I still can't believe that our photo made it to the cover of View from Our Window. So it's super special in our house.
Well, he's super special.
Yeah, he is.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't wait to see him again.
Yes.
I saw him several years before that. So
yes, yeah.
like 2 years before that is when I first met him. So, and he is still tap dancing, and
oh yes, yeah,
yes,
and he's added like ballet and lyrical dance, and he's getting ready to do his first Alice in Wonderland production. That is a ballet, and something else, his musical theater for the Music Man. And
oh my God,
he's very interested in like all this like fun stuff.
Oh, it's
yeah,
so great. So such a bright spot for this, because realistically it was so hard for so many young people to go through that period. So this is this is a, like you said, a bright story and all of it. Now I know that there was a question. Cheryl had a question. She wanted to know what the book was. Oh, you got that answered already? A
Oh,
view
you
from.
guys are writing in the chat. This is so
Yes.
cute. Yes, yeah. You can find it on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, they have the website. There's actually 2 books. This was the second book that they came out with. So like they have the first book that came out. This one came out only maybe 6 months after the first one did. So there's actually 2 you can purchase, or just on the Facebook page. It's like, so they're not super active on Instagram, but on Facebook they still to this day are posting photos from around the world, and sometimes like through, you know, the everything with Ukraine, they post things from people that are from over there, so it's still giving us like a present day view of how everything is going from around the world,
From individual people who are experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting, because I just communicated with Louise, because as I travel, I always am told, like, I have to keep people informed. So I was partners with Louise Vera for 11 years, and Jessica is her niece. And so I was just, you know, I said, will you be able to make it tonight? And she's like, I'm working on a college essay for Ava. So for her oldest, I know, can you believe it, Jessica?
No.
I know. Time flies, you know, it's like how 3 years fly.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. So I really appreciate you sharing that. My challenge right now is I have very, very talented friends who are producing so many things that I'm trying to keep up with. And so this book, View from My Window, is one of those ones that I think that I might have like put in my Amazon or whatever, but I don't think I ended up purchasing it because I have other people who've done many other things, and it's just whatever shows up. But first you do, but I was just like, I've got to read this.
Yeah, actually, Jessica, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you mind if I ask? The photo looks so wonderfully professional and gorgeous. Is you or your husband a professional photographer?
Oh, well, so technically, yes, I do work as a photographer, but this was taken with my cell phone, with a bubble gun in one hand and my cell phone in the other. And yeah, so it was far from on a professional camera. And I feel like when you look at it, you can kind of see the grain of it and everything, but we still love it.
That's the beauty. You know, I think there's so many things about the pandemic that, like you said, was horrific, was really, you know, terrifying, and so much grief and loss. I lost 28 friends, and then I think that I stopped counting.
Yes.
And so it was just like, but then there were these absolutely beautiful things, and part of the beauty in some ways is that people wanted more raw materials, including, you know, pictures that were just off a cell phone or videos that were just off the cuff, as opposed to really highly edited things that, and I think all of it brought us to being looking for being a bit more real, you know, and vulnerable. So thank you for sharing both things, you know, seeing places close, seeing apartments across the street empty out, but then creating this unique friendship with the people, your neighbors across the road.
Yeah, and Marty, I've lived in this apartment for almost 18 years this year.
I know.
It took all this time. It took this like crazy thing to happen for us to, that's New York City for you. So now when people are like, oh, in New York, we don't know our neighbors and we don't care. I'm like, I do. I want to know every one of them, and I want to know what's going on with each of them.
Right?
It's like,
It
too much
is.
of a shame,
It's
like,
that
too many years gone by that we didn't know each other.
changing that narrative. It's beautiful. So thank you. I think Cheryl has a question.
I do have a question after I just gush and carry on about what this story has done for my heart.
Oh.
Jessica, of course I have to share your story with my husband. He just came in,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I'll share it with other people too. Has there been a write-up anywhere about your story? You're a local person that maybe a
So
magazine or newspaper picked up.
No, I mean, I feel like maybe in New York City, so many people have so many great stories. My story, I guess it's been shared with, like, since like in the last year or so, I've become involved and become a trustee on my neighborhood association. And so because this photo was taken, like, and it's my neighborhood, it's the famous cherry blossoms we have across the street, and the house the old mansion that I took the photo of across the street. By the way, that's my view, catty corner. That's my view. My view is of a building with lots of other people and Flo and Jim. But
Did Flo and Jim live in the mansion?
no. So
Okay.
this is my view, like, out the window, and we would always look to the cross street because we're on the corner. But like when I look directly out my window, I see the building that Flo and Jim live in. And so my neighborhood association was very excited to kind of involve my story and the book with our annual street fair that we finally had for the first time since COVID. And the author of the book and the same person that started the Facebook page from the beginning, she was kind enough to make it possible for me to have books to sell them at the street fair. And just really, this kind of book, I was just out there meeting people and talking to them, and like they all wanted to hear the story, and I wanted to tell it. So it was like such a great day of like sharing it among neighbors and among new friends.
Yeah.
If I retell it, it's not going to have anywhere near.
Well, you've got a recording now.
So if somebody,
I will be sharing the recording.